Hey guys, back with another Echoing Thoughts podcast here, episode number 74. And 1 week post, best patch ever. And I joke about saying that because I've been saying that for so long, and everyone I talked to felt the same way, right? And then, max damage cap, more lines, rebalances, um, you know, the whole shebang, right? Everything got buffed. Damage is skyrocketing. 2x, 2.5x. Everyone's cap is increased. Everyone's damage is off the charts. V4 is out. I mean, you would think everyone would be happy. But I looked on feedback. I rarely go on feedback now just because it's just gets me riled up. And I just had to laugh because someone posted best patch ever, best update, all the things that I said, right? Thank you for all the update, or thank you for all the cap increases. Thank you for everything. Right, and it got the most down votes out of all the feedback section. I mean, I feel so bad for this person because, I mean, they just I just don't understand why they got so much down votes for that. I mean, if there's that many people upset, I don't know. I've heard Lumi's upset because they aren't SS tier anymore. Evans are upset because they're not S tier anymore. I've heard some clone classes, Nightwalkers lost a clone, right? Their clones aren't hitting very hard. They're capped. I've heard Paladins complain about losing blast lines. Everyone, people have grief. They are upset. They're never satisfied. I get that. But I think the one class that I do think has a little bit of beef with this is Sia. Most of the classes, the support classes specifically, that lost their support skills got a DPS boost. Bishops, Phantoms, Shades, everyone. Paladins even got some sort of balance DPS wise to compensate. And Sia's actually lost both. They lost DPS. Their mechanics are a little iffy. They kind of have to learn completely new rotations and combos, and it's hard to maintain to maximize that, as well as they lost Hourglass buff, right? So I get it. They get beef. They got kind of rebalanced in the wrong direction for both DPS and support. But the one that was really funny was I still see Bishops complaining that they wanted to be support class, and they're upset that they got a DPS boost, and then they wanted to be support. They wanted to leech. They wanted to be invited to endgame bossing, not have to gear up or anything, not do any DPS, and just be accepted, right? And now that they got more DPS, more lines, more burst, it's like, no, I don't want it. Take it back. I just want to be able to res, support, which they still have. Shell, Benediction, they still have. They still have all of their support skills, but they got a DPS on top of it, and they're for some reason upset. Obviously not everyone, but it's just funny that people can always find a way to turn something around into a complaint or negative. And I just thought that was funny. But in this podcast, we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about line counts, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We're going to talk about how I approach that. We're going to talk about the most important skill where, I get a lot of questions about how do I improve my DPS? Why am I not capping my lines? What should I prioritize? Should I prioritize cap or stats or this or that? I'm going to answer all those questions kind of all in one in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about this HP thing for bossing. Re-rolling HP pots. It's a big, I get this question a lot. I've been getting this question for a long, long time. But now it's coming up more often with this patch, right? People are trying to do Damien specifically, whether it's from normal Damien and now trying to do hard Damien, or they're just going straight into hard Damien. People are trying it and they're trying to get prepared. And they're hearing anywhere from 170k, 180k HP, all the way up to 250. I've heard requirements are like 250k, right? I have 260k. I don't know where they expect to get that much HP from, but I'm going to give my take real quick. I'm going to give both sides, right? I think there is a valid argument for both sides. I get it. But I'm more on the lower spectrum, 170k. For my team specifically that I lead, I try to prioritize rerolling HP pots as the last thing, right? And I'm more in the area of believing that mechanics can trump gear, right? Mechanic can trump HP. And right, even if you have a ton of HP, say you roll to 230k, 240k, there's still a possibility of dying. People still die. I still die, right? It doesn't just make it an instant, like, solve all problems, right? If you don't have the mechanics, you can have 300k and you're going to die, right? And so I'd rather get that, like, I'd rather focus on what's the number one priority, which is mechanics. And if you as a player can pick up the mechanics, know your class and know your boss mechanics, then you'll survive with 170k, right? Save yourself some money. That's the most important thing. If you don't have to re-roll, spend mesos, crystals, whatever it is to re-roll potentials, then why do it, right? If you can prove that you have the mechanics, you know what to do, and it's mainly orbs, right? If you're at altars specifically, orbs and altars is usually the death trap, right? So maybe I understand if you want to be higher HP when you're on altars, things like that, but there are a lot of factors that go into it. And I just don't believe that setting a requirement for HP is like, should be a requirement pretty much, right? I think that, like, for me, I pride myself on being able to learn mechanics so that I can play any class, any gear, and accomplish the boss. I've been doing that since Magnus, right? I've been playing solo Magnus, team Magnus, and I've had the same approach throughout, right? With my teams, it's been consistent. I've never asked anyone to reroll HP pots unless they absolutely felt like it on their own. Unless they were significantly lower. Like, we had people when we first started like 130k, 140k. That was a different story. But 170, I felt like it was a much more, like, that's achievable, that's comfortable. But right, like, if you can, like, I'm more in the camp of just skill cap, being a better player, understanding how to learn and survive on your own, use your blinks, use your toolkit. And I do get that class matters, right? I do get it, right? Some classes just have more in their toolkit, but I still think there's enough out there for every class to figure it out. Blink is a great tool to have, to use to your benefit. And I also believe that team, like, if you're dying to dashes because you have less than 190k, that's not on you. That's on the aggro, right? That's on the tank. They should not be dashing right. Now, if you're positioned in the right corner, that's a mechanic thing. But for the most part, if your team is doing it right mechanically, 170k should be enough. And that's what I'll say half of our team has in my second team has. They're not the best survivability. Loomies, Evans, like, they have ethereal form. They're on altars as well. They get it done, right? And I think that's because they are great players and they understand how to use their toolkit to their advantage to survive. And we also have great aggro and tanks to do their job. So everyone has to do their job, right? And it starts with mechanics, and then HP potentials are last, right? So we're going to talk about at the end how you can increase your HP without re-rolling your potentials, save yourself some resources. But I also want to look at the other side, right? Because I think it's valid. 230k, 240k, it's a lot. But sometimes when there's a lot of people trying to do content, right? A lot of people that want to get into these 10-man teams, sometimes you have to set the requirement pretty high, right? See who's really invested, see who really has the gear, because you can pick and choose, right? Like, so 230k, and it just feels like it's a bigger buffer. You can survive one more 40k tick orb, right? You just have the ability to, tank more damage, stand there and do DPS. There's benefits for sure. I don't disagree. And so I get that. But again, right, like, I just think that it's sort of a crutch. People that get in that mindset, I've seen it all the time. They think, if I got enough HP, I'll be fine, right? And then, like, why am I dying? I think that some classes probably need more HP to help buffer that. I think like my Paladin, I was talking to DK, Survivability is great. Night Lord, on the other hand, might be more challenging, especially if they're on altars. They have nothing else. They rely on other classes to survive. Having a little bit more HP allows them just a little bit more buffer. But so I completely get it, and especially with the support changes, I think even more we have to take into account that there's just less room for error. So right, you're just trying to minimize risk, the risk factor. Less support, less reses, more HP, less deaths, theoretically, higher chance of clearing. I get it. I totally get it. And let's be real. You can pay your way through rerolling potentials, right? That's easy. People do it. You can't pay your way to good mechanics, right? That's facts. So that's just how it is. That's just the nature of the game. And I want to finish off by saying, if you are looking to reroll, get more HP regardless, there are a few ways that you can. And so before you reroll potentials, and even if you do end up rerolling potentials, which armors you should look at. So let's start with the hat, the gloves, the outfit, and the shoes all give HP. So you exalt those up, give HP. Right, the higher rank they are, give HP. Accessories are next. Right? You can get it, rings have rings, Star Force them up. If you have EXP rings, maybe you can switch those out to bossing rings, boss set, to get the set bonuses, to get a little bit more HP as well. If you have a Kerning Tower 50 ring, maybe look to swap that out with another boss ring as well, whether it's a Chaos Horntail or another unique ring with some base HP. That has some value as well. Star Force, if it's higher Star Force, you can get that from Liberation, a little bit more HP percent. Those are great options. Just test those out. And then link skills, right? Kaiser, 4%. Pirates, I think, give 6%, maybe more. Don't quote me on that, but I know Pirates have a stacking one that they can use as well for more HP. I think there's another one, maybe. And then Decent Hyperbody is another V skill that you can craft. And as well, if you have a Phantom, take Monkey Magic for 5% HP as well. So there are avenues to get a lot of HP percent. If you're a Warrior, Impenetrable Skin, you level that up, will give you more base HP. Warriors are OP. Warriors are tanky. That's a nice one to have if you're a Warrior. And then getting into, there's also Monster card, Monster Collection. There's some that you can get base HP and I think percent as well. So check out Monster Collection, Monster cards for some passive HP as well. And then if you do decide to reroll HP potentials, I would say that you want to look at the armors that have legendary potentials first. So I like to look at top and bottom, shoes, top and bottom outfit, shoes, cape, and belt. So I usually like to prioritize cape and belt first because the best options there are usually speed and physical attack, and HP is probably just as good. Physical attack, magic attack, right? And you can say HP is arguably the best one out of those. So if you want to reroll, I would look at belt and cape first, and then I would look at shoes, outfit, top, bottom, right? Because physical attack, magic attack for those is the best option. That raw stat is pretty good as well. It can give quite a bit, and that's just a little bit more valuable than physical attack, magic attack percent. So look at those as well, because those all give legendary potentials, and those are much higher per line. And then obviously you can look at, if you really wanted to go try hard, you could look at your pendant. If you have a Dominator pendant, that's physical damage, boss attack. That's really hard to reroll off of. Magnus pendant, same thing. Rings are probably the next bet, right? Rings give crit damage and physical attack, but unique pots, those HP potentials can be pretty good as well if you get 2 lines. So, and then pocket, definitely you want to do pocket for that potential. I think it could be unique. So that's another probably better option than the rings, because those don't give anything really that beneficial besides HP. And then Android Heart is the same as rings as well. So there are great options. Look through it, right? I would recommend that if you can get away with not having to reroll potentials and you have good mechanics and you can survive on your own and you have like 170, 180k HP, good enough, right? Guild skills, I forgot to mention that. Individual guild skills gives a lot of base HP on that first row, I think. I think quite a bit. That adds up. That's nice, actually. So definitely look into that. But yeah, like I said, I just talked about a lot of different ways to get HP before even re-rolling your potentials. And if you can say you have good mechanics, because that's always what it comes down to, that is something you just cannot put a price on. Put it like it's immeasurable. And so that always trumps everything, right? So if you can get away with it, like my Demon Slayer, 170k. My Paladin I'm going to run in Hard Damien. My second one is 170k. I mean, we had bishops when we first started out at 150k, and we cleared with much less gear and damage. So it's doable, right? But the meta has changed. It definitely has. We have to take into account the support rebalance. We just have to, right? And if your team lead specifically needs more HP from you, maybe prove them wrong. Maybe say you can do without it, but it's all about the results at the end of the day, right? Doesn't matter what kind of stats you have, 180k, 230, the results speak for themselves. So prove it or start rerolling those HP pots. So I wanted to talk about, in this video, kind of how I can help you guys sort of navigate what to do next, right? I think everyone is looking to upgrade their gear somehow, right? Whether they got more cap, whether they need more stats, things like that. Everyone's trying to do new bosses. Damien, Arc, Lotus, Lucid. And so there's some level of excitement, progression, and everyone's trying to improve, right? They're excited, rightfully so. So I want to help point you guys kind of in the right direction. And the first thing that I want to talk about is sort of the top 3 questions that I get when it comes to the game, right? So it's like the first one is, why am I not capping my lines and they're all related to the same thing. So stick with me here. It's, why am I not capping my lines, right? Why am I not doing enough DPS? And what should be my number 1 priority to improve my DPS? What is the most efficient way to improve my DPS, right? And so the answer to all these questions is the same, right? So the first question is, why am I not capping my lines? Usually they're talking about commander, right? So we're going to go through commander tab right here. So most people are wondering, why am I not capping an Arc? Why am I not capping a Lotus? And why am I not capping a Damien and Lucid? And if you don't know, all the previous bosses, you'll probably cap. Hit your true cap. Whatever it says in your stats tab, that's what your cap is. But in Arc and moving forward, you'll see this defense ignore rate, 20%. Basically meaning you're going to do, your cap is going to get reduced, 20%. And then in Lotus, Damien, Lucid, it's going to go even more, 40%. All the bosses moving forward is 40%. So you're probably wondering, how do I hit more cap, right? And this is probably why you're wondering, why am I not doing enough DPS? And this is also what I'm going to talk about as a priority. So coming back to the defense, right? So what is that? Essentially, it is a stat. Let's see if it shows in here. Defense ignore rate, right here, this one, right? And there's a difference between damage ignore rate. So that's the first question you got to know, thing you got to know. The hyperstat. It's a little clunky. The wording is very weird. Damage ignore rate. This hyperstat is for defense, right? So this is basically you can avoid or resist or something, guard the chances of guarding certain attacks, right? That's a defensive stat. That is not what we're talking about here. We are talking about this stat. Defense ignore rate. So now I have 0, right? So how do I get that number up? So we're going to go into, let's go into bossing. Let's just get out of here. I'm going to go into my bossing setup, right? So This number is now 3.5. So where does that come from? Right, we're talking about this number right here. This comes from the Dominator pendant from Arc. As you star force it up, you're going to get more defense ignore rate. This is arguably, probably inarguably, the best stat in the game. The one that you should be prioritizing, and is sort of the baseline. For all newer players, all middle players, all endgame players have this, right? They know this. Dominator pendant, that's one. But that's not the number one way to get it. The number one way is to max your nodes. So if you don't know, some of you guys probably do, you should, is this defense ignore rate, 15%. This is why you want to max your V skills. At level 20, you're going to get physical damage increase or magic damage increase. And level 40, right, you're going to get 15% defense ignore rate. Same for all these skills, all of the boost nodes, right? So that is one, two ways to get more cap, free cap, right? 15% more cap. Then the new change in this patch, what has been the game changer, is that for new skills. So we're going to look at all these skills. It got changed at max level, 15%. Defense ignore rate, 15%. Weapon aura, 15%. Grand Guardian, 15%. Hammers of Righteousness, all the V skills that do damage, that are skill nodes of V1, V2, V3 are 15%. Okay, this is at level 30, maxed. Now I'm going to show you guys what this skill is. I actually just pulled this, so that worked out nicely. Is level 6, 3%. I wonder at level 0, level 1, is it still 3%? 0.5%. Yikes. So that's step one, right? I would say step one, this is the baseline to get free damage, free stats. Nodes are the best thing you have to do. I tell everyone, they're like cap, stats, nodes. Nodes is number one. This is free damage, right? It's free cap as well. Passive cap, 100% of the time. So you can see right here, on top of the ignore, 0.5, right? You also, the cooldown, the charge rate is 16 seconds. And when you max it, it's going to be 15. So when you max it, it's going to be 10 seconds. So you'll just see when I add just five free matrix points, it's going to go up 3%, 2.5%. That's a lot, right? Just free cap for these skills. And you're going to see that, and I'll do a little test afterwards, but you're going to see that this is everything. This is all the damage. And so, that is the third way, and the last one is defense smash 4. So ignore defense by 25%. So the math is a little clunky. It's not straight up 15, 25%. Even with this up, you're not going to hit your true cap. All these things, right? 40%. There's a calculation for it, an equation for it, and it's not that simple as just like 15% plus 25%, all these things, right? It's a multiplier. But how you get defense smash 4 is you're going to look through here, and it's going to cost you 80 shards, and it's a weekly thing. So you see there's a available time. It's going to expire. So you got to make sure you extract it before then. Defense smash 4 is the best one. Don't ask questions. That's the one you want to get if you want to do this. Now, to maximize your damage. So what bosses besides Commander has ignore defense? Mulong, floor 38, I think, and on, has ignore enemy defense. Covert, 100% defense at stage 6. I think stage 4 and 5 at less, stage 3, whatever, but 100%. So if you're wondering why you're hitting ones in Covert, it's because you have no ignore for like V skills. Actually, not anymore. You'll hit where your numbers are low. It's because your V skills are not maxed. or you don't have a dominator dependent to just get a base 3.5%. So these are all things that baseline, right? How you get enormous defense, why you're not hitting your true cap, why your DPS is so low, and what you need to prioritize. You need to get your nodes maxed. I tell everyone, you need to get these V skills maxed because Nexon is telling us, whether we like it or not, these skills are our biggest damage dealers. Rightfully so. Fifth job, the most recent skills, makes sense. It should be the ones that you are maxing, the ones that you are doing the most damage with. Whether you like it or not, that is where the meta is. That is where the game is, and it's not going to change, right? So make sure you max your nodes. Make sure you max these V skills. It's expensive, right? Go at your own pace. But if you're asking me, should I try to get more cap? Should I try to get more attack? I'm taking these, right? I'm saying max your nodes, and I'm sticking with it. Max your nodes, because it's not just ignoring my defense. It's also lines. Or why is it lines? Because this cooldown is 15 seconds right here. At max, it's 10. So you're going to get it more frequently, which means you can use it more, which means you can do more lines. Right? Grand Guardian, it's 120 seconds at level 30. But at level 1, it's 3 minutes. Huge, right? So on top of that, you're just not going to be able to use as much, and it's not going to do as much damage. The skill percent is also lower. This is where your damage comes from, please. If you're asking the question, what do I need to prioritize? How can I do more DPS? Why am I not hitting cap lines? These are the 3 things that you have to... This is it. Ignore enemy defense. And then after this, we'll take a break, and I'm going to show you exactly how the numbers show out in fog training, so you guys have a good idea of how I test it and what these numbers actually translate to in real setting. All right, I'm just going to show you guys quickly one little example of what the lines look like of my hammers. This hammer is level 6 versus level 30. And I'm going to take Defense Smash 4 off just to give you guys a better idea, but you guys can test this yourself. So the difference is right here, right? Like I mentioned, 0.5, or I guess this is 3% now. So we're just going, it should be fine. The settings are boss, 40%. This is standard for any endgame commander bossing. 40%, level 200. I'm just going to go in, and I'm just going to proc my hammers right here. And I'll make sure that I have fair trade on, please. Fair trade. Okay, and I'm just going to proc maybe. Where the heck are my hammers? Who's been? Oh, I see. It's because arc. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, we'll just end it there, and we're just going to look at these lines. So, right, 30 mil, 25 mil. My cap is 48. So that right there tells you what my lines are. And then I'm just going to use up a swap to my level 30. I'm just going to do it again. Takes it off the wheel. That's so annoying. Make sure fair trade is on so that they're all cap lines. So yeah, just straight up 2 mil more lines. And this is without Divine Echo up. So that it's all going to be cap lines. It's not going to be clone lines. But yeah, that's free 2 mil, almost 2 mil lines, right? Per line, per attack. 32.48. Okay, let's see what it's like with Defense Smash 4. And these are just all tests that you can do yourself, right? Nothing crazy. Let's try proc Defense Smash 4. You're going to see that V right there pop up. Or you can look in the window right here. 36. 0.4. So just free 4 mil lines, right? So defense match 4 gives you 4 mil lines. Just maxing out your V skill gives another 2 mil lines, right? So that's just cap, right? It's just free cap. And then, so that is just one example. And imagine that across all your lines, all your skills. And that is why I talk about why it's the last tidbit about your rotation, right? You can't just throw out these skills. You have to wait for your skills to proc, right? You have to wait for your defense match 4 so you can get maximum value out of your biggest skills, right? So imagine 2,400 lines at 36 mil cap and 32 for the clones versus, 32 mil lines and 30 mil cap, right? That adds up over 2,400 lines. You just got to, like, if you want to learn how to min-max your damage for your class specifically, you got to learn how to pair it with defense match 4. You got to max it with you got to max your V skills and find ways. That is free cap. That is just more cap. That is how the best players do the most DPS consistently, right? They know all these things, and hopefully that helps you guys too, right? How you can do more DPS, what do you need to prioritize, and why you're not capping your lines. You're not going to cap your lines, right? 48 mil, no matter what. Even if you hit, like, you already have a hard cap. It's considered a hard cap, right? 36 is my hard cap here. 36 is my hard cap here. Just is what it is. But you got to make sure that these are all doing the right things, hitting the right numbers you want to see. So, hope that helps. We'll dive into it a little bit. I'll be right back, and we're going to talk about more about lines. We're going to talk more about ignoring enemy defense, which classes, the data that we've gotten, and which classes are actually doing better than you think, how to take line count, how to take everything. Everything works together. Right? We'll be right back, and we'll talk about it. It's going to be pretty interesting.